how will you ensure that a person whose visa has expired will leave?
There are many ways that people leave the country, Tom. The vast majority leave voluntarily, and that's what's expected.
It's estimated that over 1 million people right now live in Canada illegally, and by the end of the year, up to 4 million permits will have expired since the beginning of 2025, which begs the question, should Canada do like the US and establish an ICE department? My name is Nico Lagan, and I'm too conservative for the conservatives. My co-host, Rob Ambrose, not woke enough for the liberals. We are the political orphans. So let me restate what I just said. It's estimated that right now over 1 million people are living in Canada illegally, meaning that their visa, their temporary visa, has expired, and that by the end of this year, up to 4 million permits, temporary permits, so call it temporary workers, international students, will have expired since 2025. So over the past 2 years, by the end of the year, 2 years, 4 million permits expired. And considering what's going on in the US right now, it's hard not to ask that question, right? Because I'm going to share some numbers today that are very problematic when you start to see how many people actually, what is our enforcement policy in Canada? How many people actually leave when they're supposed to leave? Yeah. So that's the question I have for the audience. Do you believe that Canada should establish a nice department just like the US has? By the end of today, I think you'll have an opinion.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I don't think we necessarily need to just copy and paste the American version. There's some things that I don't necessarily wouldn't necessarily want them to do up here, but should there be a dedicated agency that's job is to go around and get rid of or deport people who are here illegally? Yeah, I don't have an issue with it.
Well, you know, let's, before we get, before you share your opinion, how about we actually look at the numbers? Because the numbers, man, are problematic to say the least. So here is, so I found a video. This is when I like to refer to mainstream media videos because the numbers that they use are extremely problematic. So if those numbers that they use are that bad, imagine how bad the real numbers are. But here is an estimation that is by mainstream media that is telling us that by the end of 2026, there will have been 2.9 million temporary visas expired. And I saw up to 4, but let's use their numbers. But listen to this.
9 million people living in Canada on temporary resident, worker, or visitor extension permits have visas that expired last year or they will expire this year, and not including student visas. This according to new data from Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. One Edmonton immigration lawyer says he's never seen so many people desperate for immigration help.
I have tissue paper in my office because you don't know the tears that people will, genuine tears, where people will cry and tell me the harshest stories, okay? And this is real life. These people are going to pay a heavy price.
Only a fraction of the 2.9 million people living here will get permanent residency. Canada's admissions target was 395,000 in 2025. The Canadian government expects the rest of them to leave. Shawar, who's been doing immigration law for nearly 2 decades, says that's not going to happen.
So we may be facing a situation like we have in the States, where we have ICE officers grabbing people in the US, we'll have CBSA officers grabbing people here. Whether or not that's a good look for Canada is something we have to look at as a nation and think about.
Data from Canada Border Services.
Before we continue the video, have you noticed that it's like they're making it us? They're making us the bad guys. Like, this is not a good look for Canada. Okay, but why the fuck are they still here? Like, how is it if your visa's expired, you're not supposed to be here anymore, right?
Yeah.
So I love how they, all those videos, and that's again why I want to use mainstream media to kind of show the narrative that they're pushing. Like, they're making it sound like we are at fault here for not providing extensions for those 2.9 million temporary visas that are going to have expired by the end of the year. So let's just finish the video. There's only like 20 seconds left, but it's just, you always see the mindset of mainstream media, right? It's never quite, don't report the facts. Just tell us what you think of the facts. And a lawyer telling me that he has a bunch of Kleenex in his office for people that are crying him a river, like, please.
Yeah, no, this
please.
is going to be a good conversation. So we'll finish this video here. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the audience thinks, because I think, I think there's going to be some. I think it's going to be a good conversation.
Yep.
For sure.
Shows there were more than 30,000 active removal warrants as of December, and more than 22,000 people were removed from Canada within the last year. In a statement, Canadian government spokesperson saying it is important to note that Canada is regaining control of its immigration system in order to restore balance and sustainability. Our approach puts immigration on a responsible path that allows Canada to respond to the needs of communities and fulfill its promise to offer opportunities to those who consider this country their home. From Edmonton.
So let me, before we get into it, because there's, what she's saying is actually very inaccurate. Like, her numbers are wrong. Her opinions are wrong. And I want to show you guys why first. Leading economist by the name of Benjamin Tall, which is he works for CIBC, is estimating that there's over or close to 1 million people right now living in Canada with expired visas. He says, and I quote here, "How many expired visa holders remain and are still resident of Canada? Question mark. In previous research, we estimate that numbers to be close to 1 million, with the overwhelming majority being expired temporary visa holder who arrived in Canada legally as long as a generation or two ago." Like, we're talking, they've been living here for like 40 years, 20, 40
That's
years, because a generation is 20, 25 years. So 25 to 50 years. And I don't know if you heard, but in our 2.9 million by the end of this year, that does not count student visas. And Canada issues about almost 1 million of them a year. How many of them expire? Who knows? But here's the problem. Here's the massive issue that we're seeing in Canada. And this is why what we're seeing right now is going to get worse, because, I've spoke about this before, but there's an asylum loophole right now in Canada where the people that their visas are expired can apply for asylum seekers. Yeah. And right now, for international students, it's absolute nonsense. But for international students, you know what the acceptance rate is if they apply for, let's say that their international student visas expires, they apply for asylum seeker. You know how many of them are accepted?
Well, all of them say at least 3 years.
Well, technically the numbers are closer to, they're 4 actually. Right now it's between 4 and 8 years, the application process from beginning to end. But how many of them do you think gets approved after that waiting period?
Oh,
give me a percentage.
50%?
No, 22%.
50.
22. 22. So
it's still high.
Yeah, but the problem is, as you were starting to mention, is that for those 4 years, they get protected status. So they can no longer be deported.
And they're using healthcare, they're using infrastructure, using services, we're paying for them. So I mean, that costs money, right? So we have to consider that when we try to come up with the correct policy.
Look at those. I have the numbers. So not only do they get to stay, but they do get to apply. They become eligible for the refugee work permit if they apply for asylum seeker, which means that they get our free healthcare without having to provide into it. And here are the numbers that were, I don't know, but hold on, it gets worse, man. Listen to the numbers. And those numbers were reported by, I'm sure you know who the Toronto Star is, the wokest of the woke. They've removed, in their latest one, they've removed those numbers, but I was able to find an older version. But if you scroll, let me scroll down here. There you go, right here. According to the Immigration Department, it has covered 623,000 beneficiary in the fiscal year 2024-2025, up from 90,000 a decade ago. The expenses amounted to $896.5 million, up by $306 million from last year, due to increased volumes of claims. And they're talking about asylum claims. So that is just the health benefit that has cost Canadian. They've treated almost 625,000 people that were not Canadian, up from 90 10 years ago, and the expenses are almost 900 million. That almost tripled since last year. So 2023, 2024, 300 million. Last year, 2024, 2025, you're looking at almost $9 million was spent. That's just their healthcare.
Yeah.
That is just
So
their
that's
healthcare, which isn't, it's absolutely
That's the
insane.
context, right? Yeah, so that's the
Yep.
context. I really want to get to this conversation because I think it's going to be a good one. And I actually,
But-
you know, when we
But
opened
you
the show,
you have to let me share like a couple more things just to make sure that all the information is out there, because it's one thing to have those people here. It's just we need to understand that, because the question is, should we have ICE? Me sharing you the numbers, if the government is is doing the right thing right now, that shouldn't be a problem. We shouldn't need it. But the problem is that they don't. Right now, just as an FYI, we're looking over 300,000 pending refugee claims as per the beginning of 2026. And there's over 150,000 that are in process right now. Here is where it gets extremely problematic, is what is the percentage of illegal immigrants or people that overstayed their visas that actually get deported? That gets deported from Canada. It's reported that last year was the highest number CBSA has ever removed from Canada. That was 18,969 people were removed. So let's sake of argument, 20,000 people. That's about 1,500 people a month, when there's 150,000 visas expiring every month. So basically, CBSA has removed 1% of the people that their visas expired last year, and that was their greatest year. And I don't know if you remember this, but this is literally a 15-second video, and then we can open up to what you guys think. But this is Marc Miller. He is now a heritage. He is now the heritage minister, but he used to be the immigration minister, and that is last year when he was grilled in committee. Listen to what he said.
That a person whose visa has expired will leave. We know that just on study permits, there are 766,000 expiring by the end of December 2025. How will your department ensure that at the end of those study permit periods, those persons will leave?
Again, there are many ways that people leave the country, Tom. The vast majority leave voluntarily, and that's what's expected.
There you have it. So they expect the illegals to have an honor system. That was the minister of Immigration Canada last year. Absolutely insane.
Yeah. So I mean, and so with all that context, the question to the audience is, should we have an ICE? Because when we first talked about the beginning of the show, I was just kind of ripping off the top of my head, but I've had a few minutes to think about it here now, and I think I feel I can put some context to what I'm saying. I think I'm going to change that a little. I don't think we actually need a dedicated ICE. That said, here's the nuanced part. First of all, I think we should close that asylum loophole, period. Asylum should be cut drastically. There should probably be, just given the amount of conflicts in the world that would even qualify for that,
zero.
There should maybe be 10,000 people on. I'm okay with like 10,000 people. I'm okay with asylum, like actual asylum, people who are actually fleeing certain death, right? What's being happening now is people are coming from just it's economic asylum. They're just coming from poor countries and claiming asylum. That is not what asylum is for. There should be judges or people who can basically triage asylum claims, so you don't automatically go on a 4-year waiting list. We're paying $80,000 a year for you. Where 95% of these cases, there should be an adjudicator who can say, yeah, no, you're not going to qualify. There's no need to even wait in the lineup. And I think anyone who is here legally should be gone. And if they come into contact with police or anything, they should be deported. I think all benefits should be cut off the day that your legal status leaves. So you basically cannot do anything in the country. You cannot access health care. You cannot act. You cannot work. You can't do anything. And if you're going to have any benefits, and if you have that, I don't think you need a dedicated workforce, because that's going to be really expensive too, right? That you got to factor in the cost of what an ICE type thing would be. I just think cut the tit off, or not cut the tit off, but cut off the supply at the, cut the milk supply, so to speak, and they'll get off the tit eventually. But the problem is,
but there's a problem what you're saying, because look at what's going on in Minnesota. You have a state that refuses, or that's almost fighting ICE on deportation. So they don't want them to do their jobs. This is exactly what's happening in Canada too, because we have a lot of sanctuary cities. Montreal is a sanctuary city. Toronto is a sanctuary city. Vancouver. But that's my point. So even though the federal government and CBSA could say those people need to be removed, and if you see them, bring them to us, we're not. Law enforcement is not enforcing that. The hospitals are still going to treat you if you show up. They're not going to they're not going to prevent you from getting care. So it doesn't matter what the federal government does or would do. The enforcement that you're seeing, just like in Minnesota being the perfect example, they do not want to enforce the policies of ICE. So they're fighting ICE literally in the streets. And then they wonder why bad things happen. And this is the same thing that's happening here. Even if you put that in place, the enforcement wouldn't be done. But I agree with you, it would cost a lot of money, but you can't think that it's going to cost less to keep them here, because there needs to be a point where it stops.
If we cut off all their benefits, there's no cost to them being here. They just take up space.
But no, but there's still costs, because they're still here. They're still taking housing, for example, because they have to live somewhere. They're not in the streets. They can still take advantage of our social services, because we're never going to cut them off.
I'm just telling you what my policy be. My policy would be, I know we don't cut off their benefits. I'm saying, instead of my hypothetical policy being we need an ICE, I say rather than that, we need to actually cut off benefits of anyone the day that their thing starts. If we did that, then we don't need ICE. Now, if the question is, no, we are not going to do that, do we need an ICE? Then yeah, I would say you would want something. You would want
and that's my whole point.
The point is, you can't have people here legally sucking benefits and resources from the country, period. I don't particularly care if you're taking up space in the country, but you're not on any benefits. You're not like, I know there are people who just that on principle, if you're here legal, they want you gone tomorrow. And I agree with it. Like, if you come into any interaction with the police or whatnot, a traffic ticket or something, and you're here legally, you should be gone. But do we need to be kicking doors down of people who, let's just assume they were not taking benefits from the country? I don't think we need to do that. But the reality now is, they are taking benefits. They still get to use all the country still has to support them when they're here legally. And that does make a big difference.
We need to cut, no doubt that we need to remove them. We need to cut that asylum loophole, because that is just insane that we have that. That is just absolute insanity, because right now people could come to Canada on a visitor visa, just come here to see Canada and then apply for asylum seeker. That is actually, that's actually something that 100%. Oh yeah. It's a massive loophole.
That's how you get a 400,000 person waiting list on the asylum list. That's a crazy statistic. That should not be the case. If people are actually claiming what asylum is supposed to be, there should probably be 10,000 people on that list. A lot different from 400,000 people.
The only problem, and this is what worries me about this, is I wouldn't be surprised, similar to the UK. You know, the UK have started approaching this, and they were saying that the solution for this is a digital ID. If they don't have a digital ID,
No matter
so
what
this
the
is the
problem
only
is.
digital ID is always the
Digital
solution.
ID.
But the UK has talked about this, right? That the solution to their mass immigration is not their open door policies and that they don't care. No. It's because we don't have a digital ID. So that's the only thing we need to be very, very, very careful about. But something needs to be done. Like I
Murder
want,
rate's gone up. Digital ID.
yeah, 100%. If they had a digital ID, they would not commit murders or rape
That's right.
or
Right.
get illegal
Yeah.
guns because we would know who they are. Let's take a few.
All murderers
Comments before. Yeah, because tonight because it's such a big deal in the U.S. and tonight we're going to have a journalist joining us in 5 minutes regarding an article that she wrote that is based on ICE. I figured we'd pass the whole episode. We spend the whole episode speaking about this, but I'm curious. For the people out there, leave us a comment. If you're listening to this live, let us know right now. If not, let us give us a comment, because I normally go back after all episodes and I answer all the comments that I can. So I'm curious. Do you guys believe that we need an ICE department to deal with illegal immigrants? Because 4 million by the end of 2026, that is literally 10% of Canada's population. Just to put it into perspective, that's 4 million, 10%. Like, those are not small numbers. Can you imagine you have 10% of the population that shouldn't be here, that they're here illegally? Yeah. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. 10%. Those are the numbers we're talking about here. This is not, this is a big fucking deal. 10%.
We'll take some, we'll take some comments here.
Take some.
This one's from PC Police, and this was interesting because PC Police is on the opposite. They think that we should not have an ICE, Canadian ICE, and they feel pretty strongly about it. But one thing that they do say that I do agree with is they say that they should go after their employers. I 100% agree with that.
All of them.
Like PC Police is saying, no, we don't need an ICE, just go after the employees, and I think they're saying that should be sufficient. I don't think that alone is sufficient. No, but we should be doing that as well. I can agree with that for sure. If you're employing a legal immigrant or anyone here illegally, yes, of course you should be charged.
And see, here's another great one, because this is also something I struggle with. Is Pam is saying, I'm not one for larger government, Nico, and neither am I.
Yeah, this is to this conversation.
This is such a problematic. If we close those loopholes, like we said, close the asylum loopholes and enforce your immigration laws.
Yeah.
Right then and there, like no more, cut off the benefits. Make sure that there's no asylum seeker. I would reduce the asylum seeker to absolute zero. I don't want to deal with it at all. Zero. To me, if it was up to me, I would close immigration for 5 to 10 years, just so that we can not only make sure that we have good immigration policies, but that we have the time to go after the people that stayed here, that are leeching off the system. Because that Canada, the average working Canadian spends 42.3% of their salaries on taxes, municipal, provincial, or federal. And those immigrants, illegal immigrants that come here, have an impact. I don't care that it hurts your feelings that I say this. This is a fucking fact. There is a cost to that. Foreign help, forget immigration. Close our borders. Let us reassess and take care of ourselves, first and foremost.
It's an interesting conversation because, I don't necessarily agree with you on, say, asylum. I'm okay with having a small number, but the point is, both those positions are reasonable, right? We've got immigration gone so out of control. I don't think you holding that position is a crazy position. The average lefty would call you, immoral, evil, racist for saying that we should have zero asylum claims. I don't necessarily agree with it. I'm okay with like I said, there should be maybe 5,000 asylum claims. Or people waiting for asylum, not 400,000. I'm okay with the most extreme, egregious examples in the world, and the reason I'm okay with it is because it's only a very tiny amount. If what you define as reasonable asylum leads to a 400,000 person waiting list, as we see right now,
it's insane.
Then of course,
it's insane.
that's not what we're talking about anymore. Right now, my opinion on it changes because it no longer is allowing a tiny amount. But in my opinion, if you adjudicated asylum correctly and it allowed you to just have the correct number, which would probably be maybe a couple thousand, I would be okay with that. You say that you would not be okay with, you don't want any asylum. Both those are reasonable positions, frankly, right?
I would just want us to reassess.
Yeah,
I just want us to reassess.
Polarized environment that we've forgotten that you can, just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you think their position is crazy. I think it's a reasonable position to hold, that you just, immigration's gotten so fucked, you just don't want any asylum claims. Even though I don't personally hold it, it's a reasonable take, and it should be given, weight in this debate.
100%. You have to. We have to do something about our immigration policies, because we cannot have open borders and be a social state at the same time. We just can't. This is not two policies that can work at the same time.
Or pick open borders immigration policy. You literally 100%. Cannot have both.
Melanie, can you hear us? Are you ready to go?
I would prefer the social safety. I prefer the social safety net rather than the open borders, obviously.
Yeah.
Close the borders.
Yeah. Like more
robust social safety net.
Oh, there you go. So we are joined by Juno News journalist Melanie Bennett to speak about her article that went viral this week, named "Names Matching Canadian Politician Appear in Anti-ICE Protest Donor Link." Melanie, welcome.
Hi.
Nice to have you on.
Hey, Melanie.
Thanks for accepting
Thank you.
Well, thanks for accepting my invitation, because you didn't know me. I don't know you. I saw the article that went viral on X where you identified certain Canadian politicians that ended up on an anti-ICE protest donor leak list. And it mentioned leaked donation records from group organizing anti-ICE protests appear to suggest that Canadian municipal politicians, union organizers, and academics are financially contributing to them. Explain to us what you found.
Well, the first thing I want to add is none of those names, except for one, were verified. So I did not magically find these. I do not have hacking skills. It was an account in America, or a person in America called Data Republican, who has amazing IT skills. And she looked at the chuffed.org crowdfunding site and then downloaded a list of all the people who donated to this campaign for the Minnesota protests. And on that sheet, on that spreadsheet, there were a number of donations coming from presumably Canadians. It was done in Canadian dollars. And there were some notes on this list of who those people might be. But when you donate to a campaign, you could give any name. So this is not like an electoral donation to a candidate where you absolutely have to have your correct name, your postal code, and so on and so forth. And so technically it could be anybody's name. There were multiple anonymous donations, which obviously we can't know who they are, but there were some names, and those names suggested, this is why the headline says, some of the names suggest they may be these individuals. I did manage to verify one of those names, as it was Kristen Schneider. And this person is I can't remember which district. It was a district in, not Surrey, it's in British Columbia. It's gone off the top of my head. Burnaby, that's the one. And she's a chair of the school district over there. So that one was confirmed. This person had posted on their own Instagram, a reel showing exactly how to find the chuffed.org campaign and how to donate to it, with a fist saying send money to the front lines, so on and so forth. I did send this person that's the article. I did actually send her the video to say, can you just comment on this? She obviously didn't respond. And then I think her Twitter account now has been not suspended, but I think she's just taken herself off the internet for the time being. But that was the only name that I could actually verify as a correct person. So when we talk about politicians, these are elected individuals, I don't know that I would go as far as say politicians, except for this one potential city councillor, also in British Columbia. But as you know, a trustee or a chair of a school board is elected, but they're not. I don't know. Do we count that as a politician? I don't know. And there's another curious one, which was a member of the Cowichan tribes out in BC as well. But see, the thing is that I was lucky to obtain a screen recording of Kristen Schneider of her posting on her own Instagram. I was lucky to obtain that. So I don't know if we're going to be able to verify any of the other names. And so far, nobody's responded to me. So I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, you can't be too surprised that they're not going to get back to you if you identified them as giving money to anti-ICE protests in the US. And just the fact that she takes herself, because her account is not, you can't open it anymore on X. I'm looking at it right now. It's locked, and you can't be surprised that that's happening. So chances are she'll never answer you. But that said, I agree with you. Are they considered politicians or not? You're kind of walking that line there because they are elected. But one thing that we need to understand as well is that the people that hold a lot of power are the people that are part of our community. So the people on your school board, if she is a trustee on a school board, those are the people that actually set regulations or are responsible for what your children are being taught. So if she's sending money to anti-ICE, anti-government protests in the US, what is she teaching her children? What is it okay to teach in that school?
Well, also, she seemed quite aware that this was going to the front lines. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's what she said, so they're pretty aware. And although I didn't see any evidence of, let's say, a federal politician or even provincial party politician on there, I didn't see that personally. I did see some potentially members of some unions. I guess that's to be expected. But it doesn't, in a way, it doesn't really matter because we are electing these people. They are trusted members of the community. And I actually don't think we pay enough attention or scrutiny to local elected officials, whether that's even a parent council, a school board committee and things like that, because they do actually have a lot to say about what goes on. In my normal reporting, so I don't normally report on Minnesota ICE protests. I report on schools a lot, the radicalization of education. So what's happening mostly in Ontario as well. And I would love to see more scrutiny because this wasn't surprising. It was not surprising to me. So a journalist whose regular beat is the radicalization of education, the politicization of education, to find the one verified person as a school board trustee, that was beautifully ironic for me personally, because I see this sorts of behavior all the time. And they do have access to how our children are being educated. And I think most people don't realize how political it's become and how radical it's become in some circles.
Just her title is Advocate for Inclusive Public Education, Barnaby Board of Education Trustee. And she has her in her name. Right then and there, I know the type of individual I'm dealing with when I see she. I don't need to say that I'm a he, him in my signature. You can tell that I'm a he, him. Rob, did you have a question for Melanie? Comment, question, something to add?
No. I to be honest, I was just kind of I'm just trying to take it all in. Do you are you getting much pushback on are you getting much hate, I guess, for this, or is it how's the response been?
I was surprised to see. So I like to be as accurate as possible in my journalism, and I like to report facts when I can verify them. And one of the things that I was struggling with before publishing is that I didn't want to expose people who may or may not actually be involved. And I had some back and forth with my editor about how we were going to talk about this story, because as we know, during the trucker convoy, many people, even Americans, were donating to the trucker convoy. And at that time, there was a lot of talk by federal politicians that this was an insurrection. This was part of American foreign interference into Canada. And, there was a lot of talk about how this was just completely unacceptable. And it was funding, like the insurrection over Canada. And obviously people had a problem with this. And so I didn't want to write in a vengeful fashion in the same way that the media did during the trucker convoy. But at the same time, there's a hypocrisy here that I think does need to be discussed. So when we published, we were very careful about the words that we used. We didn't accuse people. We did say that the names could be these people. They did appear on a list, that I did reach out to all the individuals. And if it wasn't them, they had an opportunity to say, that's not me. I don't know who might have donated, so on and so forth. But what really surprised me is watching the amount of people who I felt wanted blood. And it could be jokes, but comments like freeze their bank accounts, or Donald Trump, go after them, show us the names, we want names. I was surprised to see that there was an awful lot of that.
It's ironic that the same people that were not for the prosecuting of the Freedom Convoy are now calling for the prosecution of people they don't like. It's very interesting how illegal. Exactly. And it turned out that what happened in the Freedom Convoy wasn't either, as per the judge that said that the Emergency Act was used illegally and unconstitutionally. But the point is that it's always interesting to see. The show's called The Political Orphans because I'm a real conservative. I'm a Christian conservative. Rob's a liberal, an anti-woke liberal, but we don't fit anywhere. And all of our audience, everybody that follows me on all my platforms, I'm not a conservative. I rip into the Conservative Party every day because they are not conservative. And same thing for the liberals. Like, I cannot condone any of their actions, so we fall under that political orphan umbrella. And unfortunately, there's nothing wrong personally for me for her to contribute to that. That's her choice. That's fine. But that also means that if she works for us, because she does, she works for the community that employs her, I want to know those things, because if that's the type of stuff that you do, that you condone, I don't want you teaching my kids. Like, it's plain and simple. I have the right to know, but I also have the right to say my kid doesn't belong there. But why would she get repercussion for this? She didn't do anything wrong.
And we have the right to know.
Morally, it's wrong. Morally. But she didn't do anything illegal. Like, in my opinion, morally, it's wrong, but it's not illegal.
Yeah, that's something that I think people should be able to discuss. And I think that we should be 100%. Able to know the values of the people that we elect. And I think that if you are happy with the donation that you make to crowdfunding, then why not own up to it? I understand that could be difficult at times because, of course, there was a sensational element to how the article was written. Unfortunately, that is the nature of media these days. But for me specifically, the reason I took interest in this is because of the hypocrisy, this double standard between how people who are coded to the right, and I include myself also as, I guess, an anti-woke liberal from the 90s, as bad. So what they do is bad. And if you're a social justice person, everything you do is good. And we're seeing, I think Minnesota is a really interesting example right now in America, where it's hard to tell who's right and who's wrong in the situation between the ICE officers and the protesters, because there's just so much going on. But the hypocrisy with how, like, comparing with the trucker convoy, for example, right? The absolute vitriol that was going on at the time. And as far as I can tell, I think I even pointed out in my article, Mark Carney's comments about the seditionists in Ottawa and how these Americans were participating in this sedition for donating to the trucker convoy. And we haven't heard from Mark Carney about the Minnesota ICE donations. And we won't. And that's the double standard that I think really is in the public interest, because we have far too much of that in this country. And I think, but at the same time, there's also this crazy response when you do publish something. So 6 to 1, half a dozen to the other. I was just really interested in watching the fallout.
Go ahead, Rob.
So Melanie, I have a question for you. Just as you were responding to Nico there, he was saying, he doesn't think that it should be illegal to donate. You seem like you were not entirely in agreement with that. Do you believe that it should be illegal to donate to make those donations? And is it more that it's in another country? If so, is that the issue, or like should those people be free to donate to causes within Canada? Curious as your take.
Yeah, I don't personally think that should be an illegal act. I don't. I was curious about the legal implications of doing those things, because obviously I was writing about it and I spent a lot of time kind of trying to see where the lines would be. So for example, now that we know that there are potentially very illegal activities going on in the organizing of these Minnesota ICE signal groups, would donating to a campaign implicate, let's say, the campaign organizer in an illegal activity? And there seems to be a question around that in terms of the legality. Like, there's a potential for that being illegal if, for example, this was my understanding, which is very layman, if, for example, the campaign, the person who is running the campaign is found to be directly involved in illegal activity in America by funding illegal activity in America, there could be maybe a potential for illegal activity there. But a person, a normal citizen, an average citizen, let's say Kristen Snyder in British Columbia, her donating to the campaign alone, no, there's no potential for that being illegal, just like there's no potential for an American donating to the trucker convoy campaigns, or even the average citizen donating to the truckers. So those things are not illegal. But I guess we'll have to see what happens, because this has been going on for some time now, and it doesn't look like they're doing much in America to go after these signal chats. But I guess we'll have to see. But me personally, no, I don't think it should be illegal to donate to these campaigns. I think it's a curious thing to want to donate to. Yeah,
it seems like you could make an argument for terrorist funding if there's some of the stuff
that's the line I was talking about. Yeah, so that's the line I was talking about. And I think if you could prove, if there was some way of showing that this campaign or the people behind the campaign, so Sopocek, Johnny Sopocek is the person who is organizing and funding this campaign. He's a lifelong labor movement organizer, employee, so he's very well connected with the unions. If say he was found to be directly working with some of these American either socialist groups or union groups to directly fund illegal activity that is considered a terrorist threat or domestic terrorism, then yes, there's a potential for something being considered illegal. But that's quite a tenuous. It's a big question mark, right? But the individual donating to that, it's very unlikely that would ever be seen as illegal.
What would be interesting to see is if it could be considered as foreign interference. Because basically you have an organization, because it's organized, let's be honest here. The ICE protests are not just happening by coincidence. There's organizations behind that. And imagine if it does become violent, which it has, it's going after the government. So you're looking at a potential foreign interference. And I'm not condoning what she did, but I'm not saying it's illegal either. I just want to know, if you work for the public, if our money pay for your salary, I want to know what you stand for. I want her to feel so comfortable that she will post videos of herself showing others how to donate. I want her to think that it's 100% okay to do it, because I want to know who you are so that I can decide if my kids should be there. But it's dangerous. It's a dangerous line to walk, because who knows what's going to happen over the next few weeks if this will become foreign interference, because technically I think it could.
Well, foreign interference, I think, is a little bit more difficult because the company itself is Australian. The person running the North American movement lead, I think Johnny Sopocek's title, I think, is North American Movement Lead, something like that. So he's running that particular campaign. He happens to be a Canadian. Most of the money donated to the campaign by far is American, so USD. So I don't know if it would go that far in reality in terms of foreign interference, but the people involved, like if there was a connection between them and actual organizing. Now, for example, I did look into the unions, for example, that Johnny Sopocek worked with. I also, in James O'Keefe went into the protests undercover and he sent some people. There was a video going around and I watched it. And one of his undercover reporters spoke to a number of people, one of them being a union organizer from the SEIU union. I can't remember the full length of that. I looked into this union and they have an international that spans across many unions in Canada as well. So for example, if it was found that I think it's SIEU or SEIU, they work with Unifor, they work with CUPE on multiple campaigns. If somehow it was proven that, let's say the money that Johnny was, or the people that Johnny knew was organizing with the people at CUPE who were also organizing with the SIEU people, and they were funneling money in specific operations that were illegally obtaining information or organizing potential violent uprisings, for example, like that is a possibility that could happen. But whether or not that's foreign interference, I think it's possibly a little bit of a stretch.
SEIU, I believe, is who you're referring
That also
to.
seems like
it is the Service Employee International Union that have over 2 million workers in 100 occupations. So I believe that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
And, there's another aspect to this because we had the president of Crowds on Demand. I don't know if you ever heard of that organization, but there's an organization in the US. So we had that guy. He's a vile, vile human being. There's one interview in thousands of interviews where I could not stand the guy and I kept on calling him out. That's him. That dude is vile. But he sends protesters to events like those. Like that's what his company does. And they have there's no way of going after them legally right now in the US. This whole thing is very interesting. It shows a lot of aspects that we don't normally consider at all in technology.
Yeah, but I don't think that's happening in Canada. In Canada, I think the unions are probably the ones organizing and mobilizing a lot of this stuff. I don't think the paid campaigns, I don't think that's as much of a thing here. I think it's union.
I was talking about the US, but I was talking about the US. I wasn't, since we're talking about Minnesota, I wasn't talking about Canada. Because I know his company doesn't operate here. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a company that does it here, but that's not what I meant. I meant about the Minnesota protests. So it's just there's a lot, it brings up a lot of valid point what's going on in the US and the complete, if you look at how people are divided on this, it's one of those subjects that everybody has an opinion. And because I knew you were coming on, we dedicated this show to just illegal immigrants that are here in Canada right now. And if you look at the staggering numbers, the question was easy. Should Canada have an ICE department? Because we literally kick out about 1% of the people that stay here illegally, as per Immigration Canada and CBSA's numbers. 1%. 1%. That means 99% of people that overstayed their visas are still here, or we don't know. They might not be.
I don't know if you're following the Conservative Party convention over the weekend, but I think they voted on a proposed policy that if you commit a crime and you are not a resident or not a citizen, then you're deported almost immediately.
It did.
Whether or not that becomes a thing.
I was surprised that's not already the case. Isn't that the law? Is that not? I mean,
no.
That it's wild that the Conservative Party needed to vote on it. Why was that just not an assumption in the Conservative Party?
I think that's not been an assumption for a long time because of human rights laws. It's the same in the UK. I mean, it's the number one reason why they can't deport people is because of the European Human Rights Convention, right? Yeah, ECHR.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing here in Canada. It's down to, well, we can't deport these people because for one reason or another, they'd be worse off, or there's some kind of reason, right? Or, when they come to Canada, they might and maybe get in trouble. Maybe they suddenly discover that they have a bisexual identity and can't be deported. So I think it usually comes down to some kind of human rights legislation or other.
But you know that they are. You know that they're.
I hate.
They are.
You're right. Everything you say, everything that Melanie's saying is correct. That people are like, oh, but we can't do that. But we can't. But it's like, yes, we fucking can. We can literally do whatever we want. We don't need to, the European countries, they can exit the ECHR. We just not choose to, there's no a magic force that's forcing us to do that. The solutions are so simple. We just need the political will to do it.
I disagree that they can just leave the ECHR, because the UK did leave the EU back in 2016
Well, I know
and
it
has
wasn't easy,
not
but they
managed to leave the
can do it.
ECHR ever since. So these things, I think the legal structures, the unaccountable legal structures, are definitely a problem. I personally would love to see a political party be very ruthless in terms of not creating new laws, but getting rid of many useless laws that are putting barriers in the way of, I guess, a liberal society. When I say liberal society, I don't mean liberal in the liberal party sense. I mean, as in liberalism, a liberal democracy, the rule of law, things like that, being able to speak freely, right? Those sorts of things. Yes, classical liberalism.
Unfortunately, even the conservatives are not conservatives in Canada.
That's a
So
really interesting point.
very good luck on that one,
ahead,
because
Nico.
that is something, unfortunately, as a conservative, that bothers me. And their latest convention was a mess. Some of the stuff that they voted on, and they still can't agree on very simple principles like parents having the last word as to if their kids should transition without their permission. They voted against that motion.
That's wild.
51% over
conservative
49.
part.
That's complete insanity
They voted against
to me.
it?
So they 51% to
It's
49.
crazy. It's crazy enough that they're even debating it.
Well, but that's the issue. So I
That's
agree with you,
crazy.
Melanie. We definitely need a party that's ready to address this, because this is a question that needs to be addressed. We have a massive problem with our immigration in Canada. No matter where you sit, we need to agree that it's a problem. Canada's not doing very well right now, and we need to be able to take care of Canadians before. I always go back to the analogy when you're on an airplane. What do they tell you? If you're a parent, put your air mask first, and then put the ones on your children, because guess what? If you lack oxygen, you just killed your whole family. So we need to remember that it's okay for us to take care of our own. It's not racist for me to say, I want Canadian taxpayers' money to be spent on Canadians. Like, that's racist for me to say that. It's insane. It's absolutely insane, but that's Canada for you now.
Yeah. I don't know, I agree.
Yeah, it's crazy how we got. It's crazy how we got to this point. I just want to circle back to something you said, Melanie, where I think that's an interesting point. Is that we all assume that political parties, they get elected and they look around and say, okay, what laws are we going to enact? What laws are we going to put in place? That is the default assumption, and it's so deeply held. I think most people don't even assume it could be any different. But it would be interesting to have a political party whose line is, we will not pass one law. And
well, I think for me it goes beyond that.
What laws
it's not just not passing more laws. It's repealing laws.
Yeah.
Repeal. Spend their energy on repealment. Yeah. So
yes.
You start with the blank statement, we will not pass the law. And then you go to, and instead of spending our energy figuring out which laws to pass, we will now spend our energy figuring out which laws to repeal. And for the next 4 years, we will just repeal law after law after law. And the public debates will center on which laws to repeal, not are we going to repeal a law.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about not passing new laws. I think there's potentially arguments to be made for that for whatever reason. But there are many things that I personally think need to be repealed massively because they get in the way, especially if you're center or to the right of any actual so-called progress. Now, I'll just talk about the UK again because I follow what's going on there very closely as well.
Sure.
And currently, the Reform Party in the UK, one of the big things that they talk about is I think they call it the Big Repeal Act, where they're promising when they get in power that there's all these massive acts, including the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights, that they're just going to repeal. They're going to get in, and the first things that they're going to do is they're going to repeal all of these, and it's a big suite of big laws that are getting in the way of let's say, for example, getting rid of illegal immigrants and people who come in on small boats, or people commit crimes when they're not citizens, things like that. And I think they have the right path forward, in my personal opinion. And I'll talk about education again, just as a sidebar, because that's the thing that I cover the most. And when it comes to how education, when I say education, I mean schooling, K-12 education. It has become a hotbed of political ideologies that we could talk about, woke, DEI, those sorts of things. And it's sort of transforming education almost, it almost looks at some, to me at some point, that it's like a social transformation, like a social engineering experiment. And there's no way to stop this because we have this overriding Human Rights Commission in Ontario kind of pushing that forward. And there's all these other provincial laws making this happen, these anti-racist laws and so on and so forth. And if you repealed those things, possibly replace it with something else, because that, like, I don't think we can necessarily never pass any new laws, but repealing it would almost be the only thing that will return the public education system into something that makes sense. Because with the Ontario Human Rights Commission involved in education, that's probably never going to happen. It's probably going to get worse. So that's what I think personally. I think I would love to hear politicians talking about what they want to repeal rather than what they want, what new laws they want to pass. But we don't have that in Canada. I don't think I've ever really heard politicians talk about that. I mean, maybe the PPC, but they're not going to get elected. So that's what I would like to hear.
You're not going to see, unfortunately, a political party in Canada that wants to reduce the size of government, which, again, this is a conservative value, to have smaller government. That's one of the biggest difference between liberalism and conservatism is the size of government. And unfortunately, even the conservatives are not talking about this. So I agree with you, but good luck on that one. Good luck on finding the political party that's going to do that.
My preference.
Yeah. Your wish list of imaginary. Yeah, I get it. Melanie, we're at the top of the hour. I want to thank you for taking the time. I really enjoyed you being here. Thank you for the conversation. It's always interesting to see what public servant. There you go. They might not be politicians, but they're public servant. Let's call them that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Are doing, and I'm happy that they get exposed because it's in the rights of the parents in those communities to know who's teaching their children or who's responsible for the curriculum. So thank you for doing what you did. And hopefully we see you. Hopefully you liked it enough that if you do another article that I like, I'm going to invite you again. So thank you for your time and thanks for joining us.
Oh, well, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Melanie.
Absolutely.
We had a lot
Bye,
of fun.
Melanie.
Bye.
Bye. I wanted to take one more comment before we go. This one right here. Charlottetown 4422 is saying the transgender issue is not dead and will definitely be revised at the next party convention. They have party conventions every 3 years. So not only is this not done, the last one was in 2023. So yes, it's going to be revisited in 2026. I guarantee you it's going to be worse in 3 years than it is now. But the reason I bring that up as problematic is people don't realize that the number one issue that got Trump elected in the US is his stance on transgenderism. He had the balls to say that he would not stand for it. That is the number one issue that won Trump the presidency. And I guarantee you that there's a lot of guys like you out there, Rob, that wish a politician would have the balls to say men don't have vaginas and women don't have penises. Can you imagine if a politician just had the balls to say something that is 100% accurate? Men, I always think about the little guy in what was
Something
it? The kindergarten cop.
In the world
Do
knew about.
you remember the kindergarten cop?
Yeah. But boys
the little
have
kid.
a penis, girls have a vagina. Yeah, the little kid.
Yeah. That guy's become one of the biggest memes ever, and it wasn't on purpose. It was simple, common sense back then. So
even 5-year-olds
here we are.
knew that back then.
Yep. Yes, sir. Great show, man. I enjoyed her. I enjoyed having her. I didn't know what it would be. It's always it's always you never know. You never know what you're going to get when you never interviewed somebody, but I enjoyed it. What do you guys think? Let us know what you think in the chat, in the comment section, if you enjoyed our conversation with Melanie. I did. So hopefully, if you guys enjoyed her, we will have her back when she writes another article. Yep.
I like the, we had a good conversation before that as well about ICE.
That's why I brought it up,
Canadian
because
nice.
I knew everybody has an
She never
opinion
did
on that.
answer it, did she? Or did she answer it? I thought
I
she
didn't ask her the
kinda, I
question.
don't know. I don't think she intentionally dodged it. I think she
No.
just. Oh, okay. I thought you were kind of asking
I didn't
her,
really.
her opinion on
No.
if there should be a Canadian nice.
No, I didn't really ask her. That was for us to talk about, because I knew that everybody would have an opinion. Agree, disagree. We all have an opinion on this. That was the point. Since her article was about ICE, I figured I'd dedicate the episode to that. But I didn't really ask her. No, I don't think so, at least. Let's call it a day, bro.
Yeah, no, I thought you were kind of like not directly asking her, but like I thought you were kind of indirectly asking her, and I thought she didn't answer, but not because she was dodging. I think she just answered something else and kind of forgot. I would actually be, I would have been curious to see how she felt about it. She, you know, she seemed pretty opinionated in a good way. Like she you know, she clearly had thought about a lot of these issues before, and it was an interesting conversation.
Agreed.
Well, folks, I think we'll pin her for the night there. Guys, if you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome. This is a Political Orphans, the show where common sense left meets right and tries to have productive conversations like you're not going to have too much elsewhere out on the social media. If you want to support the show, you can please consider becoming a member. You can do that through YouTube for the low price of $2.99 per month. You can also buy us a coffee, which you will see in your upper left-hand corner of your screen. And of course, the third way to support us, keep coming back. Remember to like and share that stream and throw those comments in there. We'll get to them because the show is always heavily balanced or based on audience participation, like you. Other than that, folks, have a great rest of your evening. We'll see you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Peace.